This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we have initial day we have discussed about the demo. Next day we have discussed about different types of performance testing. Yesterday we have discussed about the importance of software architecture. What is a server, web server, app server, database server, protocol, failover testing. In today's session, we will start with a performance test questionnaire. Um, so before going there, let me show you one more important thing. Okay, so uh, this is the performance testing life cycle. Okay, so basically in any performance testing project, okay, there will these are all the different phases of the life cycle. So any performance tester in their day-to-day work will generally work on these different phases. So if you are attending any interview and if they ask you what are your day-to-day activities or what are your roles and responsibilities, okay, so you should say that as a performance tester, I have been involved in all the different phases of performance testing lifecycle, right from NFR, that is non-functional requirements gathering, till reporting and recommendation. So the generally the work starts somewhere here, gathering all the requirements, questionnaire, and all that stuff. Then you parallelly work on these things, scripting, test data, and all that stuff requirement. So remaining things you can do some parallel tasks and all here and there. But generally the first thing that you do is to gather some information about the project. Okay, so so like uh, you are assigned to some project and you are asked to do some performance testing for one of the project. Now you don't know where to start. So the task or the phase that you need to start is to gather questions or information, to gather information about the project and what to do, what is the expectation. So I have prepared a questionnaire document which contains some list of questions that we need to ask the application team or the business analyst or the client. And once we get answers for all these questions, you will be good to go and start working on next phases of life cycle. Okay, so I mean, without this information, it will be difficult for you to complete the scripting, execution, analysis, and all that stuff. So if you want to really start working on the project, you need to gather some information, and this is the right information that you need to gather. I have listed on all the questions here. Okay, so you schedule once they ask you to work on one project, schedule a call with the application team. It includes dev team, business analysts, and all. So schedule one initial meeting with them and walk through them all these questions. Okay, and get the answers from them. So the first section here is a general questionnaire. Okay, is a general questionnaire. So it's basically asking about the application name, application description, application objective. Okay, if there are any application documents. Okay, so it's very straightforward. Um, so what is the application that we are working on? What is it all about? What is our objective from this for this application? If there are any documents, any project related documents that can be attached, like you can take any links, SharePoint links or anything like that. Then second section is about the roles and responsibilities who are part of the entire project, which includes dev, business analyst, and everyone. So you have to note down the information of all the stakeholders, so that if you find any issue or if you have some blockers, okay, any hurdles in between, then you know the right persons to contact depending on the issue. Okay, then if you scroll down, then this is where the environment or architecture details questions are coming from. So the first point in this section is load test environment. So in which environment you want to run the load test? So basically we will have different types of test environments, like SIT, IST or UAT performance testing environment. Separately, you might have a performance testing environment, right? So where exactly they want us to run the performance test? Are they giving us a dedicated environment for us to run the performance test? Okay, so we have to find out which environment we need to run the performance test. Then whatever the whatever the environment they provide us to run the performance test, is it a replica of production? That's what we have to check. So is the load test environment a replica of production? So the thing is, whichever environment you are using for performance testing, that environment should be a replica of production. That means if production has two application servers, this environment should also have two application servers. If production has 16 GB RAM, okay, on each server instance, then load test environment should also have same 16 GB RAM. So I'll show you one more slide for this. So here it is. Okay, if you see this slide, I was talking about this point. So the above one is a production environment where you have web server, maybe load balancer in sync with web server, then two application servers, database server. Same thing you need to have in production like environment, that is a performance testing environment. Okay. A performance testing environment should also have a similar architecture like production environment. Everything like instances, configuration, everything. So it should be an apple to apple comparison. However, in some scenarios, your client might not be in a position to give you an apple to apple comparison of infrastructure. So let's say in production, you have 32 GB RAM. Maybe in performance testing environment, maybe due to budget issues and all that stuff, they might give you only 16 GB RAM. So no need to worry in that case. You can still run the load test, but while sending out the results, you need to put a caveat saying that these numbers, whatever you are sending, these are for the these are for the 16 GB RAM kind of infrastructure. Okay. So most of the cases you get the same environment as production. In rare cases, you might not get it. However, it should not stop you from running the performance tests. Okay. So that is the second point. This is like SIT or UAT or perf. Second point is like, is the load test environment a replica of production? Yes or no? Okay. So you have to get that details. See here, the third point is also is also in sync with the second. So the third point says production versus test environment, performance test environment. How many number of CPUs, RAM, and their capacity. Okay. Production configuration 16 GB RAM. Load test configuration also 16 GB RAM. This is production. This is load test. So configuration should be same. Okay. Configuration should be same. Then is there any pre-work or post-work required for this application? Okay, so application team or the development team, basically they might have already worked on a lot of development activity for this application, right? They might have some idea about if there is any post or pre-work that needs to be done for this application. Okay, is there any dependency for this application on other application or something like that? You need to find out that. Then provide architecture details like what is the type of web server? Is it IIS or Tomcat? What is the app server? Is it WebLogic or WebSphere or something like that? Or database server like Oracle SQL server like that? Like what is the load balancer they are using, algorithm they are using? So you have to get those details as well. Then architecture diagram, you can get the architecture diagram link. Most of the times in banking organizations, they might restrict you by giving by not giving these architecture or project related diagrams. Okay, the application architecture they might not give you because of security reasons in some banking and financial institutions. Rest all you might get anywhere. Okay, everywhere you get it. Yeah, I've seen like in couple of banking and financial domains, I've seen like they don't share application architecture clearly. Okay, they give you high level information, but they don't give you clear architecture diagram because they are they are worried about its security, data security. Okay, so these are all coming under environment or architecture details. Any questions so far? in this particular table? Any questions?
I mean, let's say for production, like in they're giving like the throughput requirement like 100 TPS for R. Okay? But our like the pre-pod, I mean that is the performance testing environment. In that case, if it is the half of that, so in that case we have to recalculate according to that capacity. Is it the case?
Yes. Basically, we try to run the first. We try to run the test and tell them like how much of TPS can be generated using let's say 16 GB RAM, okay, compared to 32 GB RAM of production. So if they're happy with that, that should be fine. Otherwise, we should discuss with them and see what can be done. Okay. So depending on the architecture, depending on the configuration of the servers and all that stuff, that will that will give us the output as well sometimes, like the TPS what you are mentioning. So it depends whether
Mhm.
we will be able to achieve the
I
TPS
mean,
or not.
we will need the detail at least to calculate the thin time and patient, right?
Yeah,
At
yeah,
least some information.
that's true. But the thing is, when you are calculating think time, generally I'm asking if you are aware of it. Are you going to consider RAM or some configuration of the architecture? Just
No,
asking.
but accordingly, no, but accordingly, I mean, that is what my point is. Do we need to, I mean, the recalculate the throughput according to the sizing and capacity of the
I
system?
don't think that will make a difference. I still go with
Mhm.
the TPS given by the client, and I'll still try to achieve what the client is asking. In case if when I'm running the test, if the system breaks or crashes, then I'll go back and tell the client that okay, this is the TPS you have given. This is what the configuration that is there in production. This is what the configuration that is in test environment. This is what we tried to achieve, and it crashed. So that means with the given TPS, the current infrastructure is not, manageable. The infrastructure is not able to withstand the TPS target. Okay, so I'm sure in that case, either the TPS should be reduced or the infrastructure should be increased. Okay.
Okay, got it,
Because,
got it.
because there is no other option, right? I mean, either you have to achieve the target or the system should crash. Something will happen. Okay. No. If you scroll down, application technology. So this section also is very important. Here, the first thing that you are going to ask is what type of communication mechanism is implemented, which protocol is used. So as I said, if it's a HTTP or HTTPS based, you use Web HTTP HTML protocol. If it's a if the client and server is just for exchanging files, then you use file transfer protocol. Okay. Then you are asking application technology details. Then on which technology the application was built? Is it Java, .NET, PHP, Python, like that? Then database details. What is the exact database details? Oracle, SQL Server, and all that stuff. Then any third-party components. Like, are you using any third-party components for development? Like, if yes, what are those components? If are there any Java messaging systems or MQs used? Are there any Java messaging systems or MQs used? So if yes, they have to give what type of MQ is it? Is it an IBM MQ? Is it a WebSphere MQ? Is it a Rabbit MQ? Like that. So what type of MQs are used? Because if there is MQ in place, okay, okay, there are a lot of MQs, right? So as a performance tester, we need to know, okay. And if you have to specifically test MQ, right, using performance test, using the tool, then you need to know what type of MQ it is, because for each MQ there is a dependent jar file, okay, that you need to associate with the script. Then only it will work. Otherwise, it will not work. So that's the reason we are asking that question. Okay. If you scroll down further, here we are asking application details. Okay. Uh, Application details in sense like what are the critical business scenarios. So as I said, every application will have a lot of scenarios, but as a performance testing team, we don't test all the scenarios. We just test critical scenarios first. Okay. And basically, I won't say first, we just test critical scenarios. That's it. So we don't test a scenario which doesn't have any importance or usage. Okay. So we are asking them, what are the critical scenarios? Can you share with us? Okay. Then, like I said, if you take a banking application, what are the critical scenarios? Transfer money is one critical scenario. Download bank statement is one critical scenario. Pay credit card bill is one critical scenario, right? What is a non-critical scenario? Like updating user ID, user password is one non-critical scenario, which a user does maybe once in 3 months or once in 6 months. We don't know, right? Then the next one is application test environment URL. So in whichever environment you are going to run the test, that test environment URL you have to ask them. Okay, because that's where you need to run. That's where you need to access. That's what you need to access, and then see or go through the flow manually once and see how the flow is going on. Is there any challenges? Even you have to find out if there are any challenges in terms of data and data prep or you know pages loading and all that stuff. So you take the application URL for the test environment and go through the flow manually once or twice or thrice just to be comfortable, because when you start recording the flow, you should know the flow. Okay, it's not like you start recording the flow and then while recording you're thinking of what to do next. No, first you have to execute the flow manually for 2 3 times. Once you're comfortable with the flow, then you have to record the script, because in the middle of the script recording you cannot think of what to record. Then for that application URL, ask for sample user ID and password to log in, because you have to manually go through all those scenarios, right? Just to practically, so that you'll get some idea about what to record, what to test and all that stuff. Then if there are a lot of user IDs to be created and used, then how to create a new user IDs if required. So are we going to create a new script for it? Is any other team gonna help us in creating the user IDs, or are we going to develop our own script? Then we are asking them, like, generally how do they create user IDs? We are asking them, how do they create a new user IDs? If it's easy process, we can also do from our script, within our script, right? Or using a separate script. I develop a separate script to I develop a separate script to create a new users for me, right? That is also possible. Okay. So any questions still here?
But generally, the test data is that given by the manual testing team. Is that possible?
Uh, it's not mandatory, or it's not gonna work in that way in every project. So the
Mm-hmm.
main point that we need to remember is, we as a performance tester should try and prepare our own data. We should not be dependent on others, because let's say on this is 1st August, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say on 3rd of August you need to run the load test. You are
Mm-hmm.
dependent on some other team. They are not sharing the data on time. Okay, they might have their own challenges. That's fine, but they are not sharing any data. So will you go
Mm-hmm.
and tell your manager that I did not execute the test because I didn't get data? So that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make
Okay.
sense in these in these kind of projects. So they
Mm-hmm.
project managers expect us to prepare our own scripts separately, which will create test data, because sometimes we create test data in huge numbers. For example,
Mm-hmm.
for example, uh, the project that I'm supporting, I need 5 to 6 million records, 5 to 6 million records for test data.
Test.
How am I
Okay.
getting? So I can create my own script which will connect to some database, get all the data that I need randomly, use it accordingly. Or I can write my own script which will create some random data for me so that I can use. It depends. Okay, so
Okay.
think how to create a script for your data prep. Okay, take it as a separate script. Okay, and keep that script handy. So keep doing the maintenance of it, because if you don't do maintenance, that script might not work after 1 2 months or 3 months. So keep doing the maintenance, keep checking if that script is working fine or not. Always be ready with your test data. Okay.
Okay. So this script is nothing related to VGen, right? We are not writing anything related to test data in VGen. It's separate, completely separate, right?
No, that's what I'm saying. You can use Vusion. You can
Oh,
use
you can
Vusion
use.
script
Okay.
only for test data creation also. Okay.
Oh, okay.
It depends on. how comfortable are you with Vusion scripting? Okay. So if you are good
Mm,
in scripting within Vusion, like obviously
mm.
which we will learn, I'm sure by using Vusion itself, more than 90% of the data requirements can be achieved.
Okay, okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So then next one is the workload volume details. So in this section, we are asking with how many users we have to test. Is it like 100, 500, 1000, 5000, 10,000 like that? So how many users? Okay, and we are trying to ask at a scenario level. Okay, what do you mean by a scenario level? So I'll tell you this difference, but we'll discuss that points in detail later. But I'll tell you what this point means. Total users scenario level. So let's say, for example, you have a bank application. Okay, so transfer money 250 users. Okay, download statement 200 users. Pay credit card bill 300 users. So like this, the client or the business team should provide us some information at a scenario level. Otherwise, what they will do, they'll say, oh, I cannot give that much level data. I can give you this bank application, total users 300, 550, 550, 750. Total users is this much. Now they will tell that I don't know like how many are using for transfer money, how many are using for download statement, how many are being used for pay credit card bill. I don't know as of now, but the total users are this much. The client can tell you like this also. Okay. Now you have to use some other formulas and calculate at a scenario level. Okay, that's fine, we'll see that later. But the input what you get might be at this level or at this level. Majority of the times you get at this level, and that is what we initially ask as well. Okay, we don't want to take that headache of getting the users at the application level and then separate it at the scenario level. Of course we can do it, but I don't want to take a specific headache on that. So what I try to do is I request them to give the users at a scenario level. Okay, because in the above section they are giving me the list of business scenarios right here. So let's say they are giving 5 business scenarios, so I am asking for each of that business scenario how many users I need to test. That's what I'm asking them. So they as a business analyst, because business analyst is an analyst anyways, right? So they have their own ways of finding the number of users at the scenario level. They try to give it to us. Okay, they might use any tools like Splunk or whatever it is. They try to analyze and they try to give it. Even we can do it, but we need to have access to all those tools and databases and all that stuff. Then we are asking the question, what is the current production volumes? So so if the application is already in use by the users, then what is the current production volume? How many users are using this application in real time? So we are trying to gather some information about the current production user volume. Then we have test data information, what test data we need, how much test data we need, how to get test data, some info. Like it will help us to write our own scripts. Okay, so this is workload volume details. Any questions? Okay, okay. So the last one is testing details. Like we are asking them what types of testing is required, what type of testing is required, load, endurance, stability, load, stress, soak, whatever it is. Then testing timelines. Okay, by when the testing should be completed, by when the testing should be completed. Okay, by when the testing should be completed. APM tool support, are they using any APM tools like Dynatrace, AppDynamics? Okay, are they using like any APM tools like Dynatrace, AppDynamics, Datadog, Neuralink, and so on? Expected SLS. So obviously this is one important thing, right? Even we need to tell client whether what went right, what went wrong, whether the performance improved, degraded, and all that stuff. So we need to know the SLA for the application scenario or transactions. So how much time login should take, how much time logout should take, like that. But at an overall application level, every transaction should not exceed 2 seconds or 3 seconds. Like that, the client will give you that information. Then finally, we are asking, are there any existing performance issues in production? Okay, so this we need to know just to make sure that okay, there is already something going on in the production which we should be aware of, and that's the reason we are asking them. Okay, but this question is valid if it's an existing application. If it's a brand new application, this question doesn't make sense. Okay, any questions?
So here types of testing required. Will the business tell what type of testing we have to do, or we should advise them like
Yeah,
load testing, endurance testing?
sometimes they will tell us, sometimes as a team we should decide, as a performance tester we should decide. Why
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling sometimes they will tell us is actually business analysts might work with different teams within the organization. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so when they work with different teams within the organization, so they will check what type of tests other teams are running. Okay, and if they
Okay.
see that other teams are running like load, endurance, stress, something like that, they'll say that hey, these teams are running these kind of tests, will you be able to run the same? So we should say yes.
Mm.
Otherwise, we can suggest our own thing. If they say that okay, we are not aware of anything, you only run performance tests. What type of test you want to run, you run. Just tell that. Just tell whether this application will be able to withstand this much amount of load, yes or no. Okay, with all your observations and concerns. So in that case, as I said, because the performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability, and scalability, I suggest you to go with load test, endurance test, and scalability test. Okay.
Okay. That we can decide only after doing our analysis on the testing, right? Load testing.
Yeah, we should see what kind of application it is.
Mm.
Do execute the flow manually twice or thrice. By then you should know like whether you will be able to run the load, whether you will be able to develop the scripts and all that stuff. If you are able to run the load test, I'm sure you will be able to run the other types of tests because it's
Okay.
just a user differentiation or time duration differentiation. The remaining scripts are same, right? The scripts
Mm.
won't change.
Mm.
The scripts
Okay.
remain same. Only thing is that our scenario creation will be different. For endurance, we run for 5 hours, 3 hours like that. Same
Mm.
scripts. But for load, we just run for 1 hour. Same scripts.
Okay.
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 So
Understood.
this document
Thank you.
I will share. Uh,
Yep.
Yep. I'm not saying that your teams will not have anything like this. Your teams might also have a template. Your teams might have a different template. But I have this my own template. But the thing is, but the common thing between your project template and my project template is the questions that we are asking. The template design might be different. You might be following some Excel or some PDF. I'm following some Word document, but okay, but then the questions will be same in all the projects. It doesn't matter which project it is, but almost all the questions will be same.
So, sir, I mean, do the organization follow any specific template or approach while
Yes, yes,
gathering
they
the
might
NFR?
follow. Yeah, they might follow. I mean, I don't think at an organization level, but I think at a project level they might have their own templates which they might prepare at the starting of the project itself. So let's say it's a brand new project. Obviously manager will tell the lead that hey, okay, we need all these documents. Hey, can you prepare all these documents? So out of that, one such document will be this questionnaire document which the performance lead or the automation lead, basically nowadays automation testers are doing performance testers are doing automation testing, like that. It's a common thing, right? So the lead for these projects should be responsible for creating this type of document, a common document or a template, so that others can also use it within the same team. Okay. um no, any questions before I move to the next concept? Okay. The next concept is, now let's say here we are getting the number of users. Okay, we are getting the number of users, total number of users we are getting here, correct? Now who is giving these users to us? Who is giving these users to us?
Either product owner or business analyst from
Yeah.
application side.
Okay, so before I discuss further, just wanted to I just recollected one thing. So from this questionnaire document, there will be 100% sure question that you will get for the interview. Okay, 100%. Every performance testing interview by the lead or manager will have this question for sure. So the question is something like this, something here and there. What is the important information to be gathered from the application team or client or BA before you start working on any project? So this question is very important, that when they ask this question to you, even if you tell like 7, 8, 9, 10 points quickly one by one, like what I listed here, okay, of course, you can take the points from this is okay, but at the same time, if you can tell like 7, 8, 9, 10 points from this, quickly, then I'm sure it will have a, I mean, your interview will be like, through, like for 25% it is done. Okay, it's that important, because it's a very first step in the performance testing, and if you don't know what to gather and what questions you need to ask, then there is no point in, there is no point in, proving ourselves that we have already have a lot of experience on in performance testing. So they try to ask you these questions, because if you tell these, generally scripting, execution analysis, that is part of everyone's training, but these questions are something which they get only if they work on projects. Okay, like and that too, they'll be able to tell quickly like 7, 8, 9 points quickly without any delay, only if they already have some work experience. So that's the reason I'm stressing on this question. If this question is asked, please do not forget, at least tell like 7, 8, 9, 10 points one by one quickly. Okay, now coming back to the other question. Okay, who is going to give the user volume? Either application team or the client or business analyst. From somewhere or the other, they get the data and give it to us. Okay. Now, with respect to that, okay, sometimes what will happen? The client, basically, the client will not have any info, or the client is completely not aware of performance testing. Then client will be having some issues, or facing some challenges in giving us these volumes data. Then what to do? Then the question will be something like this for you in the interview. How do you gather information regarding target volumes, okay, to be achieved if your client doesn't know anything about performance testing? That means if your client doesn't know anything about performance testing, how will you gather this information then? Okay, that's the question. So in this case, you have three scenarios. You have three scenarios. One is if the application is already in production. Okay, in the first scenario is, of course, client is not aware of performance testing, but then the application is already in production, already in use by real users. In this case, what we can do as a performance tester is, if the application is already in production, then try to get the historical data. Historical data means last 1 year or 6 months data, by using some data analytical tools like Splunk, okay, SQL, SQL SQL database, and analyze the data. So when you have some tools like Splunk and all, it will be easy for you to gather the data, or for the past 6 months or past 1 year. Okay, for example, in the last 1 year, during which month or during which date and which hour was the application most busy. So generally, uh, you will have some big sale for some festivals, right? So that means the application will be busy during those big sales. So you have to find out when is the application actually really busy, too busy, okay, and when was that date, and during what time the application was busy, because sometimes these guys announce festival sales, for example, 10 a.m. to 12 a.m., 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., 2 hours festival sale like that. Then in the last 1 year, during which month, during which date, and during which hour was the application most busy? So that 1 hour, or that time period data, you need to take it and then use it for the load testing. That's the max they have achieved or they have reached in the last 6 months to 1 year. So that max data, you need to take it and use it for performance testing input. Okay, so when was the last time more number of users access the application, how many page views, etc. So all this information you can be getting by using some data analytical tools like Splunk. Any questions in this? Because it
Dynatrace can also be used, right?
yes, Dynatrace can also, we can also use Dynatrace. We can also get the historical data and see. But the thing is like Dynatrace also we can use. Yes, we can get some. We can create our own graphs. We can run our own queries, which will get the data. But Splunk is more powerful tool in this aspect. Okay, till now. So Splunk is very accurate and more powerful because it's more like a data analytical tool. Dynatrace is like more monitoring tool. Okay,
Yeah, but
so
we can see the peak usage, right?
yeah,
Based
you
on
can see
that,
the
we can.
peak usage. Yeah, you can see the peak usage. But still, as I said, Splunk is more, you know, a best, more best tool in this aspect. When you want to go and see the historical data, I mean, and analyze, you know, your metrics. Splunk would be a better tool. Okay, I'm not saying Dynatrace will not do it. It can do it that as well now. But then uh, you if you have Splunk, I suggest you to go and use that. Otherwise, Dynatrace will still, you know, using Dynatrace, you can still fetch some data and, you know, collect the data, collect the metrics. Then in the
Okay.
second scenario, yep, in the second scenario, yeah,
Before we move on, a quick one. So the volume of the test will be knowing through the Splunk logs. And how about the actual data, like users? If we take any banking application, you said the users. How can we get those users? From which team will be getting those users?
eh,
Test data.
that that's why yeah, that's the reason we need to ask the application team, like test data, how much,
Okay.
what data we need to use, how much data, and how to get data. So they will tell us generally how they create user IDs. So generally, even developers, for some testing purpose, maybe unit testing or whatever it is, they create their own users, right? In fact,
Mm.
if there is a separate manual testing team or functional testing team, you can also reach out to them and ask them like how did they create data, how did they create the users or data for them.
Okay.
Okay, so either way you get
Okay.
some information and you should be good then.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
But how much data we need, that we can decide by running pre-tests and based on the transactions per second and
Yeah,
all that, right?
how much data we need, that depends on how many users, for how many users we need to run the test and for how many iterations. Okay, for example, I'm not going in detail, but I'll tell you one quick example. So for example, one important scenario is transfer money, right? Now let's say for transfer money, what are the steps we have? Launch the application, log into the application, navigate to savings account. Okay, fourth one, select a beneficiary. Okay, then enter amount, then transfer and log out. Okay, something like this. Now the requirement will be something like this for you. Transfer money, you need to run with 250 users and target, let's say, 5,000 iterations. I'll tell you what is iterations in the next session, but I mean, at a very high level. So this is one step. This is one step. This is one step. In performance testing terminology, we can call it as one transaction. Launch is one transaction. Login is one transaction. Navigate to savings account is another transaction. Like that, you have 6 transactions here. When you execute all these 6 transactions once, that will become one iteration. When you execute all these transactions 100 times, that will become 100 transactions. When you execute all these transactions 500 times, that will become 500 iterations. When you run all these transactions 50,000 times, it will become 50,000 iterations. So the thing is, when you want to run, let's say 5,000 iterations in 1 hour, how much data you need? So you need at least 5,000 data of some kind of input, like for example, select a beneficiary. So you should select a beneficiary, right? So you might have like 20, 30 beneficiaries which you can reuse them. Okay. You can select a beneficiary which you can reuse. Okay. So you need to find out, okay, in all these 6 transactions, where exactly I am using the data. Is the data reusable? Okay. Is the data reusable? Is the data something unique? That means if I'll tell you. For example, for this scenario, if the beneficiaries, I have 10 beneficiaries. Okay. 10 beneficiaries like Rajesh, Mahesh, and so on. Okay. If if these 10 beneficiaries are reusable, that means I can pick these 10 beneficiaries randomly. I can pick these 10 beneficiaries randomly, okay, and reuse them for 5,000 times. That's fine. I just need 10. Okay. If these are non-reusable, that means if I once use this data, I cannot reuse again, then you need 5,000 data because you need to complete 5,000 iterations in 1 hour. Everyone understood? So depending on what is the target, depending on what type of data you are using in the script, is it reusable or non-reusable? Based on that, you need to find out how much data you need. Everyone understood? Okay. I'll tell you some more examples on the upcoming sessions of some practical examples. So if you got some idea, or if you understood at least 50%, I'll be more happy. Okay. Then scenario 2. First scenario is application is already in production. First scenario is application is already in production. Then what about second scenario? Application is not in production. Application is not in production. So when the application is not in production and client also doesn't know anything about performance testing. Okay. So everyone understood this name? Application is not in production.
Yes.
Okay. That means it's a brand new application. Okay. And client also doesn't know anything about performance testing. In this case, because application is not in production, you might have to get some competitor statistics. When I say you, it's not you who will get the competitor statistics data, but your business team will go and get the competitor statistics and give some data to you for performance testing. Okay, so maybe you can they can use some network traffic utilities, like as I said, and analyze page views, page locations, from which location they are accessing which pages, and all that stuff. I'm saying about the competitor statistics. Okay, so there are many sources nowadays in the market where they work only to provide some data or statistics to the different clients. For example, I reach out to some ABC company and I say, hey, I'm going to start a new bank. Can you tell me out of the list of these 10 banks, what are their customers count? What are the customers count annually? Something like that. So we'll ask some information. So they will take some money, okay, as a business purchase, and they will give us some information. It's official. Okay, like for example, you have one site. I don't remember completely, but I'll try. You have something like similar web. Okay, something like this. For example, if you click on this similar web, if you see website traffic analysis, website traffic analysis. Okay, now if I enter some site, okay, and search, it will search all the traffic of that site, like how many users are accessing that application, like some information it will capture, like from which location they are accessing and all. But it's not for free, right? You have to pay for this company. Then only they will give you all the information. You see, they will give you all the insights you need. Okay, spy on competitor sites. You see here, spy on competitor sites and take their top strategies. Like, it's like they pay it. We pay for them. They get the data for us. It's like, I don't know how they get it and all, but there are some sources. There are some sources where they provide information. For example, here it is saying try for free. I don't know. Let me check. Okay. It's not gonna. it's gonna ask for something like that's fine. Leave it for time being. So basically, you have some sources which can get the competitor statistics. They do website traffic analysis. Okay, they do competitor analysis. See, right? That's what I mentioned here as well. So they do. You have to get the competitor statistics. You might reach out to some sources, pay for that, and get some details. That's what you can do. But is this the job of a performance tester? Will you be? Let's say you are working from some country, like let's say India. Let's say your client is from, let's say, Australia. Will you be able to get competitor statistics by sitting in India for an Australian client?
No, no, it's
No,
not. I
right?
think
So
it's,
Yeah.
that means
yeah.
this
Yeah.
scenario is purely dependent on the business team. So business team, they go and get the data for us. We just need to work with them and get the data for us. Okay. Same is the case for scenario 3. In the scenario 3, application is not in production. That's there. Client doesn't know anything about performance testing. That's there. But there is no competitor also. In this case, there is no competitor. So when there is no competitor, how business deals is, of course, it is very tough to gather data because there is no competitor also. So they try to see the core business. What is a core business? For example, I am starting a food delivery application. Okay, for the first time. There is no competitor. I got the new idea for the first time. There is no competitor. Now, when I'm going to start my online business, how do I know how many users might use my application? So first, we will do some research. From as a business, they do some research, get the numbers, do some surveys, and get the numbers for the core business. For example, daily 1 lakh or 100k, 1 lakh or 100k people are buying or purchasing food from the nearby stores. Okay, now they are going to nearby stores and purchasing food. How many? 100k as per the survey. Now, as a business, what we think is, if I start online business, how many users might convert to online business, online users? Like out of those 100k or 1 lakh users, can't like 50k or 50,000 or 50k users, whatever it is, uh, uh, their expectation is like at least 50% or 25% of the users will switch to online, right? So keeping that in mind, so they take the inputs and run the load test. So it's all about what is the core business. Out of that, at least 25% might switch to online business if I start something new as a brand. Okay, so keeping those numbers in mind, we will run the load test. However, scenario 2 and scenario 3 is something where performance testers might not have complete control of, because you cannot get the computer statistics directly. You cannot know the core business. Okay, let's say you are supporting from India, but you are working on some Australian project. You cannot get to know the core business of that particular project, right? So that's the reason you have to rely on the business teams, business analysts, business teams, product managers, okay, like that, and try to they will work with the actual business clients and all that stuff, and they try to get the data for us. Okay. Now in the interview, they will ask you this question: how do you gather information regarding target volumes if the client doesn't know anything about performance testing? Even though scenario 2 and scenario 3 doesn't make sense for us directly, but you should tell all three scenarios for sure. And this question is asked 7 or 8 times out of 10. Okay, this question is asked 7 or 8 times out of 10, especially if you are working for projects within India, because I have attended many projects outside of India and across the world, but I have never seen this question asked by you know the abroad interviewers. This question is mostly asked if you are attending the projects within India for sure. 7 to 8 times out of 10, this question might be coming for the interview. Okay, and you have to tell all these three scenarios. Okay, and they might specifically ask you, have you gathered any data for scenario 3? So if you say yes, I only gathered everything, I only got the data of the core business, I only got to know about the core business, I did some surveys and all, it cannot work like that. So you should say, of course, reaching out to client and gathering such data is really tough. So we have to reach out to business analyst, and we have to work with business analyst to get the data for these kind of scenarios. Okay, so you have to be straightforward, no problem. But having said that, you should mention all three scenarios in the interview. Okay, any questions? Okay, so with that, I will end this session for today. So from the next session, in the next session, we'll discuss about workload modeling. So what is pacing value? How do you calculate? What is the formula? Why we need to calculate pacing? Okay, all that stuff. And then we'll start scripting part. Directly we'll jump into scripting tool, scripting tool installation, all that stuff we'll discuss, after that. Let me go here
So
and